Hydrofield cuts through my neighborhood.
LuckyBurritoArt.com, where everything is handcrafted and made with love. Check out the dozens of designs available now. Inventory is always changing. Check out LuckyBurritoArt.com. Handcrafted resin art, handmade jewelry, glass and metal pendants, holiday stockings, beautiful sienna hoods, wooden scarves, gift cards, handmade wristlet bags, and other handmade beautiful items. Get them at LuckyBurritoArt.com. Check out our river glass necklaces. Get 20% off for Mother's Day. Just enter MOM20 at checkout. That's LuckyBurritoArt.com.
Hi, everybody.
What up?
Welcome to another episode of Fearlessly Authentic.
I don't think I'm turned on over here. See which one lights up over here, I guess. Out of those two. There now.
The third one?
Yeah, turn 8 up. All right. Hello, people. Can you hear me now? Checking. Houston, come in. Do we have a problem? Woof. Leo says. Josh Davis, how's it going? Hope everybody's having a good Sunday. It's raining like a son bitch up here.
Yeah, we have a lot of rain.
Lots of rain over the last couple of days. But you know what they say? April showers, something makes you grow weed. Or whatever.
Well, I didn't grow these, but I made them.
Pretty.
I made these today. I'm super excited about these. Brand new ones I was trying out. And
I like them.
yeah, it was like, I want to be on the camera. Like, so yeah, they're really cool. The reason I really like these also is because they are a Scandinavian design, and I have Scandinavian lineage, so I think that that's pretty cool.
I like how they look like a tiny. I don't know. It reminds me of like a little like a game or something I've seen on that I used to play on Atari or something like. 'Cause it's all like pixels.
Oh, because the
Because of the-
images are
The
pixels.
beads are like representing pixels. I like it. I like it.
I didn't
like
put
it.
the ear wires on them yet, but
Awesome. Well, I hope Angela dug her stuff. I know that happened the other day. She got her stuff.
yeah, Angela got her goodies.
Sweet. Excellent.
All right, let's see. Who do we have? We got Snow Leopard in the house.
And greetings,
Angela.
folks. Appreciate you.
Hey, Josh. Good to see you. Cindy.
Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom.
Angela says, buy Lucky stuff. I'm getting a real collection of it, and I love it all.
Nice.
Oh, you're so sweet. I'm just glad that you guys, that you guys like what I make. Makes me happy. Definitely. How's everybody doing? Oh man, I've been like doing beading like all day, and I feel like my eyes are like.
How's everybody doing?
Why is it?
That's you. I'm gonna share this. Tell
Oh
the
yeah.
people to share it
Yes,
out.
please share it out there. Sometimes it takes a few minutes to get everybody in here.
You.
So tonight we're going to be talking about detransitioners. So we're talking about people who have, either socially transitioned because they're transgender or transsexual, and they have socially transitioned, or they have medically and socially transitioned. So I don't know. Last I knew, there wasn't a lot of people from the more left covering this, and I'm nonpartisan. I'm just like I don't really care if it's a right or left issue. To me, if it's right or wrong, that's what matters to me. And so I wanted to talk about this a little bit more because we've been covering the issues that the trans community has been going through, and the medical intervention, the costs, how it's being pushed and how it's being portrayed. And this is part of what we didn't get to cover before, was about detransitioners. And the detransitioners, I find, have been alienated from this community that they were once part of. Right? They were completely embraced within the community when they are transitioning. They have all this support, and then for whatever their own reasoning, that they decide that that's not right for them, and they want to detransition. They're not met with that same compassion that they once had from the community. And I feel like they are, they're speaking out against things, and if you do not parrot what the rest of the trans community is saying, and you don't agree 100%, your people are getting alienated. They're getting attacked for it. They're being people that were trans are being called bigots and all these things. They're calling them transphobes, which I never really understood, because I'm not I've been called a transphobe. I have friends who are trans, and I support them. I support adults in their decisions to do those things. But there's some alarming numbers that are coming out. I've covered this in previous shows. The majority, they're finding, maybe not majority, maybe that's too strong of a word as of right now to say, but the percentages were rather high that people are on the autism spectrum. And when puberty comes, that's not a comfortable, all of us have been through it, right? So we know it can be awkward. It's different, various like levels of that for each person, you know, and each person how they individually feel. And so there's a really high number of people who are transitioning or that are on that on the autism spectrum that are also transgender. And this is like alarming to me. It's like, okay, well, you know, and then people, when they detransition, what's happening is they're being attacked and, you know, like, oh, you can't detransition. They don't want that. They're like, oh, there's a very few people that do it. And they try to say like, you know, and it's all the manipulation around it that really, really is a red flag to me. It's the Cold Lake mentality of you have to believe what we say and that's it. There's no dissension from it. There's no conversation about it. And I feel like there's not a lot of people like on the left that are really talking about this. As far as I know. I mean, if I'm wrong, please let me know if others are talking about it. Like I would welcome that because we need to be having these conversations. And, you know, like I try to do it with compassion and care and, you know, wanting what's best for people. You know, no matter where they are on the political spectrum, no matter where they are, you know, in the world, I want what's best for people. And I feel like we need to not be avoiding hard topics. We need to be talking about them so we can have some understanding. And if we don't talk about them, then how do we find out where that line of offensive is? You know, like if we don't walk up to that line to figure out where it does become offensive or where it becomes something that is hurtful, then we won't know if we can't even talk about it. Lady Alex said, I think that if adult wants to have a private parts change, it should be safe and free of charge. Yeah. Yeah. For adults. Absolutely. You know, if they want to, you know, do that to themselves, then that is up to them. But they should also be informed of all of, you know, it should be informed consent. You know, they should be aware of everything that comes with it. When you're transitioning children, like, and if you do have a sex change or a surgery to alter your body in that way, the detransitioners are having a hard time. The women that have had their, like, and I'm trying to use, you know, think about my wording carefully to not offend anybody, but, you know, the people that were born biologically female, I won't use the term cis. I don't like that term. I think that biological female is perfectly fine. But some people do use the term cis to refer to the sex that you were born with and that you were assigned at birth. So biological females that do transition and that have top surgery and that have their breasts removed and then they detransition, they can never breastfeed their child. Even if they don't have complications from the chest surgery, it's really weird because the insurance companies are covering people to have the transition, but not detransition and have reconstructive surgeries to correct something if that wasn't right for the person. They're not given that same opportunity. Then they have to separately raise money to get further surgeries if they're able to.
Yeah, get up and yell cisphobic and see how they like it. I think all those terms are silly and don't need to be reimagined. They should be based on biological terms and therefore be pretty much uniform across the board. And everything is a spectrum anyway. So even biologically, you could be 90% female and 20%, or 10%, whatever. it's if you're 20%, then you are extra special.
And when you
then you'll be
transition,
110.
you have to be flooded with an extreme amount of hormones. It's not like you're getting just like the normal amount, you know what I mean, pushed into your system. You're literally altering your entire biology while you're trying to, you know, and so a lot of times people have really bad reactions from those too.
Wipe 3 times on your bottom if you love me. What? Popeye triggered my Tony Orlando and Dawn memory from childhood, and I'm sorry. I had to say it.
Oh my God. Popeye.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, there's a lot around this, and there's a lot that, oh my gosh, this is like delaying. Okay.
It's gonna be a little wonky. Just be patient with it. It's doing the best it can. At the mercy of the
and people don't have health care, and this isn't even something that's covered for everybody. So it's I mean, I was saying this the other night too. How crazy is it that even Hollywood is built around, all the storylines in Hollywood are built around us not having health care in this country? Let's see, what did Angela say? And we're going to get into an article that I have here. I've listened to the trans activists that are cautioning against it for kids. They destroy the narrative and get called anti-trans, and they themselves have happily transitioned as adults. Exactly. That is absolutely happening. And then if you point it out, or you want to talk about, you know, a male to female transition, and how somebody that has the biology of a male, you know, males are physically different than females. It comes down to bones. I mean, you're not changing bone structure, right? You're not changing your span of how long your arms are and how tall you are. And I know there are women that are tall and men, you know what I mean? Like there's different, you know, heights for everybody. But when the average woman is shorter, and then you have a male that transitions to female and is on hormones, that's not the only thing. Like, you're not changing everything, you know, because females develop differently than males, and that's why it is fair in sports, and why they do different weight classes even within the same gender. But we see these people that are male dominating in female sports when they were like 500th place, and then suddenly they're winning against women that were Olympians, and that's happening. And then the women speak out against it, and what happens? They get attacked, they get called bigots, and they get harassed. So, you know, like, we need to, as a society, not allow a small percentage of the population have free range of being a protected class that is a self-identified protected class.
Right.
And what do I mean by that? I mean that anybody can say that they identify as trans. You don't have to have like a medical doctor. The doctors are doing affirming care. They're not evaluating patients properly.
You tell them.
Yeah, you tell them, and they affirm it.
Yep. You tell them, and they won't unaffirm it because that's dangerous. You might commit suicide or something, and they can't be held responsible for that. So they're just going to go along with, oh, you think you're a dolphin, Bobby? Okay, that's fine. We'll get you. We'll get you a fin. But it's the same exact thing. It's the same thing.
Well, the best example that I found was, say somebody is anorexic, and they believe that they are overweight. Okay, that is a form of body dysphoria, and they're saying that you don't have to have body dysphoria, in order to be trans. That this is like a new language that is coming, you know what I mean? Like it's ever evolving, and the language for it is ever changing. So it's a lot to keep up with. But they're saying that you don't have to have body dysmorphia or anything like that in order to be trans. You can just feel that way, and you know what? If this was an option when I was a teenager, I might have been like, well, I definitely don't fit into the girly roles. I've always been more of like a tomboy, and you know what I mean? Like I joke around about how I drive a huge van, a 15-foot van, which is not typical for women. Women don't like to typically, stereotype drive big vehicles. They don't usually have all the power tools, and like I've always just kind of I identify as a female, but I've always kind of been like, not to that typical stereotype of just a feminine female.
Can you wrench up Mike Arrington?
Oh, we can.
See, we didn't have Applejack in here screaming 8,000 times in a row. Wrench alert, in capital letters, exclamation points. Good to see you, Mike.
Okay, let me see. Let me get to my show here, and then we'll do that real quick.
Good to see you, Mike.
There we go.
Boom.
Oh, thank you, Lala.
La la.
I gotta show you guys that came in after I already showed them really quick before we get to the article. Look at the earrings I made today. Aren't those pretty? Little Scandinavian inspired earrings. So, all right, let me pull up this article. Hopefully my eyes won't bug out too much. Like looking at these tiny 11O seed beads, it's like they are so tiny. Like each one of these strands, right? That's 19 of them.
They got a lot of thingies on them.
Yeah.
Whole bunch.
And I feel like staring at these tiny little things. I need to get like a light with a magnifying glass so I can see better. Okay, so, oh, this is weird. So in order to do this, I'm going to have to go back to the article over here. So I'm not going to be in the StreamYard looking at the article. Oh, how do I find it? Okay. Sorry. Okay. So this is a Washington Post article, and this is from June 18th of 2022. And it says, the headline says, I literally lost organs. Why detransitioned teens regret changing genders. So I was failed by the system. I literally lost organs. This was Chloe. When Chloe was 12 years old, she decided she was transgender. At 13, she came out to her parents. And she did it in a letter, actually, because I've looked into her story a little bit. And it's heartbreaking. It breaks my heart that people are feeling this way and they're going through this. Either way, whether or not they are trans or they're not trans, if they're having, that dysmorphia about their body, or they're just not feeling happy about who they are, that just breaks my heart in general. Like, just to see people sad or upset. So when Chloe was 12, she decided she was transgender. At 13, she came out to her parents. The same year, she was put on puberty blockers and prescribed testosterone. At 15, she underwent a double mastectomy. Less than a year later, she realized she made a mistake. All by the time she was 16 years old. I mean, I can't imagine being that young and making that kind of decision. Now 17, Chloe is one of a growing cohort called detransitioners. Those who seek to reverse a gender transition, often after realizing they actually do identify with their biological sex. Tragically, many will struggle for the rest of their lives with the irreversible medical consequences of decisions they made as minors. I can't stay quiet, said Chloe. I need to do something about this and share my own cautionary tale. And she does. She absolutely does. She speaks out, and we'll go into uh, more of that later on. In recent years, the number of children experiencing gender dysphoria in the West has skyrocketed. Exact figures are difficult to come by, but between 2009 and 2019, children being referred to transitioning treatment in the United Kingdom increased 1,000%. Among biological males, 4.4 1,000%. Among biological females, meanwhile, the number of young people identifying as transgender in the U.S. has almost doubled since 2017, according to the new Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report. Historically, transitioning from male to female was vastly more common, with this cohort typically experiencing a persistent gender dysphoria from a very young age. Recently, however, the status quo has reversed, and female to male transitions have become overwhelmingly the majority. So female to male. Where was I? Dr. Lisa, is it Littman? A former professor of behavioral and social sciences at Brown University, coined the term rapid onset gender dysphoria to describe a subset of transgender youth, typically biological females, who become suddenly dysphoric during or shortly after puberty. Littman believes this may be due to adolescent girls' susceptibility to peer influence on social media. So this is a quote from Chloe under the image here. It says, I can't stay quiet, said Chloe. As a boy and today as a girl, I need to do something about this and to share my own cautionary tale. Helena Kirshner, a 23-year-old transitioner from Cincinnati, Ohio, who was born a biological female, first felt gender dysphoric at age 14. She says Tumblr sites filled with transgender activists content spurred her transition. I was going through a period when I was really isolated at school, so I turned to the internet, she recalled. In her real life, Kirshner had a falling out with friends at school. However, online, she found a community that welcomed her. My dysphoria was definitely triggered by this online community. I never thought about my gender or had a problem with being a girl before going on Tumblr. She said that she felt political pressure to transition. The community was very social justice-y. There was a lot of negativity around being a cis heterosexual white girl. And I took those messages really, really personally. That is another thing that is that has shown up in the statistics, is that it is biological females, especially from middle class kind of areas, that's the numbers that are rising in a lot of blue states. Honestly, it just makes you go, well, why is that? So Chloe Cole, a 17-year-old student in California, has similar experiences when she joined Instagram at 11. I started being exposed to a lot of LGBT content and activism, she said. I saw how trans people online got an overwhelming amount of support, and the amount of praise they were getting really spoke to me, because at the time I didn't really have a lot of friends of my own. Experts worry that many young people seeking to transition are doing so without proper mental health evaluation. Among them is Dr. Erica Anderson, a clinical psychologist specializing in gender, sexuality, and identity. As a transgender woman herself, Anderson has helped hundreds of young people navigate the transition journey over the last 30 years. Anderson supports the methodical, milestone filled process lasting anywhere from a few months to several years to undergo transition. Today, however, she's worried that some young people are being medicalized without proper restraint or oversight. I'm concerned that the rise of detransitioners is reflective of some young people who have progressed through their gender journey very, very quickly. She said she worries that some doctors may be defaulting on medicalization as a remedy for other personal mental health factors when other issues important to a child are not fully addressed, therefore transition, then medical professionals are failing children. I agree because what's happening is, just as a side note here, is there is a formula. There is like a complete, you can go to to the doctor. A lot of people, they're going to the doctor even as children, and they are getting puberty blockers or estrogen or testosterone on like the first or second visit that quickly. And the side effects for those are out. It's absolutely insane. It actually makes it where if you give a child puberty blockers, they might not ever be able to have an orgasm in their life as an adult. If you're transitioning children, a lot of them never experience an orgasm, and they won't even as adults, even if they continue and they grow up to be an adult.
It's just another way to get broken.
Well, and then on another side note here, just like they were saying, is that people usually have some kind of underlying condition also on top of it. So there's a high number of autism. There's a high number of people that have mental health issues, depression, anxiety, whatever it is. Borderline personality disorder is very common. And those things are just being cast aside as if they don't exist, and transitioning is the only thing that they need, and that's it. And in the short term, people may be feeling okay, euphoric, and feel like, okay, I'm getting the help I need, and feel like they're getting somewhere, when in all actuality it's masking the issue. So that's just a side note there, that is also happening. And we don't have healthcare in this country, and so people are often going undiagnosed that have things that that they might benefit from seeing somebody about. So according to an online study of detransitioners conducted by Dr. Lisa Littman, last year 40% said their gender dysphoria was caused by a mental health condition. Oh, see it right there. And 62% felt medical professionals did not investigate whether trauma was a factor in their transition decisions. My dysphoria collided with my general depression issues and my body image issues. Helena recalled, I just came to the conclusion that I was born in the wrong body, and that all of my problems in life would be solved if I transitioned. Chloe had a similar experience. Because my body didn't match my beauty ideals, I started to wonder if there was something wrong with me. I thought I wasn't pretty enough to be a girl, so I'd be better off as a boy. Deep inside, I wanted to be pretty all along, but that's something I kept suppressed. This breaks my heart. She agrees with Dr. Anderson that more psychological evaluation is needed to determine whether underlying medical issues might be influencing the desire to transition. More attention needs to be needs to be paid to psychotherapy, Chloe said. We're immediately jumping into an irreversible medical treatments that could be focusing on empowering these children to not hate their bodies. And I think that definitely is a factor. Especially like if you go and you scroll through TikTok or even YouTube Shorts, or like what I notice like is there is so much like beauty and makeup tutorials like nonstop, and I don't even watch that stuff. So and it's being pushed on me constantly, and I'm like, it's weird to me. Like, to each their own. If you want to wear makeup, wear makeup. I don't care what gender you are. If you want to wear makeup, have fun with it, do what you want. But the push is to having like this perfect skin, to hide all your flaws. And if you don't look like that, and the same thing, it goes back to Hollywood too, and how in Hollywood everybody looks a certain way and looks all perfect, but you see those celebrities outside of where they don't have someone doing all that makeup for them, they don't look the same. So as a society, we really push these body and these body stereotypes, and we're not accepting of it. It's really weird. We're not accepting of people being in the body that they're born in.
I'm pretty sure I watched a video or read an article put out by Gays Against Groomers.
Mm-hmm.
Little was asking if anybody knew about them in the chat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I think so.
I think I follow them on Twitter. So I agree with what Chloe is saying here in the article about how more needs to be, paid attention to with psychotherapy and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the underlying issues are not being taken care of. And okay, so I know like back when my friend of mine transitioned, it was like years of therapy and talking and it was a process. It wasn't like a quick thing. Like, how crazy is it that it's so quick that you can go to a doctor and the first or the second time, a lot of times you can get puberty blockers for a child or hormones. And if you look up the side effects of those hormones or puberty blockers, it's wow. It's scary. So in 2019, Marcus Evans was a clinical director in adult and adolescent services at the Tavistock, which has since, I believe they have completely closed now. That's in the UK. And Portman NHS Trust and publicly funded mental health center in the UK, where many youth seek treatment for gender dysphoria. But he resigned 3 years ago after what he viewed as the unnecessary medicalization of dysphoric adolescents. Yeah, and there is big. We covered this previously. I'm going to make sure that we put the links down below of other shows. We covered how much money they're making off of the care, and how much they will make in a trans person's lifetime, and how the hospitals are just like salivating over that, as we don't have healthcare in this country. So I saw children being fast-tracked into medical solutions for psychological problems, and when kids get on the medical conveyor belt, they don't get off, Evans said. But the political and part of that is also, let me just side note here, a lot of that is also because what are the adults told? Oh, if you don't do this, not only are some states like saying we will take your children away from you if you do not give them affirming care, that they are also suicidal. But they actually, the statistics have shown that that's not the case. That suicide is higher with people who have transitioned. And I think that detransitioning is part of that. I think that that's partly why, because, and we'll get into that. But the politicization of this issue was shutting down proper clinical rigor. That meant quite vulnerable kids were in danger of putting a medical path for treatment that they may well regret. Indeed, transitioners are getting younger and hastier. Puberty blockers are commonly administered to the first sign of development to children as young as 9. According to the World Professional Association for Transgender Youth, testosterone and estrogen injections are frequently prescribed at age 13 or 14. Despite the Endocrine Society recommendation of 16, and serious surgeries like mastectomies are being performed on children as young as 13. Like at 13, you can't give consent for a lot of things. Like you are still considered to be a child, and they're letting children decide.
That's nuts on its face. Just that they're letting them decide. Also, if you're an adult and you have a baby and you say, okay, I don't want to have it, me and my husband don't want to have any more babies, and you want a hysterectomy, or you want to be, you know what I mean? You want to get your husband snipped, they'll contest that with you every single time. They're like, no, you need to wait a while and make sure you still feel this way. But they're letting these children decide, and like, oh, sure, you're fine. Come on in. Fucking crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely crazy that a grown adult can't go in and say, I don't ever want to have kids. I don't, I want to have, a hysterectomy. I want to have, I have my tubes tied. I want to have, I want to be snipped. And you can't decide that for yourself. But kids can decide this.
Yeah, it's fucking madness.
Like we've gone too far.
Yeah.
We've gone too far as a society with this. So although medical intervention for minors requires parent consent, many mothers and fathers approve surgery and hormone therapy as a recommendation of affirming medical professionals, or even out of fear their child might self-harm if denied treatment. It's very hard for parents to know exactly how to evaluate their own kids, and they rely quite heavily on experts to tell them. Jane Wheeler said, a former regulatory health care attorney who founded Rethink Identity Medicine Ethics, a non-profit that promotes ethical, evidence-based care and treatment for dysphoric children. There's obviously a lot of concern about the capacity for an adolescent or minor to fully appreciate what medicalization really means. Yeah, do they understand what it entails in a surgery?
It's just nuts. And then not even the surgery, before the surgery, the therapies that they have you in, these drug therapies, that's insane what they give you to change you from one to the other sex.
But it doesn't actually do that.
But it doesn't actually do that at all. And what it does is ensure that you will have a lifetime of organ issues and reasons to come back to the doctor.
Osteoporosis.
They will ensure that you are a forever patient. Yep. if you decide to go that route. And these children don't have any idea what that even entails or what that means. Never mind the actual irreversible surgeries that they're trying to get. And like I don't understand how it seems like a mental health condition, and it's just encouraged. Well, it used to be seen it's just encouraged way. Because they make mad money off of it. So they're just like, yeah, come on, you're fine.
Well, would you give an anorexic child would you sign them up for surgery if they thought that if they feel that they were fat, right? Because it's a medical condition that somebody has.
Sure.
They restrict how much they eat, or or being bulimic. So say somebody is that, and they feel like, I need to have a weight loss surgery. Would you affirm that for them?
Right? Would the doctor affirm that? Would that same doctor be like, oh, sure, you're fine. You're 13 and you need to make this decision for yourself?
Well, I'm going to give you a surgery to reduce your weight, even though the person is underweight.
Is real thin. Yeah.
I mean, it is literally the same type of, the same level of that. And that's just, when I heard that, I was like,
I know that's a safe assumption, Lady Alex, that most of the surgeries are definitely for white people. And most of them seem to be, more. Didn't they say the statistic you just said a little while ago was there was more of one than the other? It was more men wanting to.
It was more male to female, but now the female to male is going up.
Now it's going up. Okay. You won't. No, you will not know the joy of a Pabst Blue Ribbon smear.
Oh. So medical professionals typically allow for the affirming care model, which is supported. This is crazy too, by the American Psychological Association. Also, I believe it's the pediatric, association.
That's
also
nuts. How are the pediatric doctors going to be on board with this? What kind of sick fucks are on that fucking
and
team?
If you go to a doctor that doesn't specialize in this kind of care, where are they going to send you? They're going to send you to a doctor that does, and those doctors that are known as the ones that are going to approve this kind of thing are the, you know what I mean? They're going to send you to the one.
Yes, that's it.
That's going to give you what you want. You know what I mean?
They placate, like Lady Alex says, just like rich parents placating their children at this point, and with no regard to their futures or their health or any other aspect, just trying to make, Tommy and Shaniqua happy, whatever. I think that is the term, Oz, tyodictomy. That's the female to male transition.
No, that is
no, that's incorrect. I'm not a doctor. I'm not really sure the terminology.
Yeah. I mean, and how about we just how about people can just, wear whatever clothes they want, and if they want to wear makeup, they wear makeup. They don't have to, physically do that, But they do find that children that transition, when they transition, even if it's just socially transition, it's what they call it, when they don't have a surgery or anything, if they're young children, that often leads to medicalization later on too. So, all right, let me get back to this article. Let's see.
Yeah, there seems to be several different pronunciations of it.
Validating a patient's expressed gender identity regardless of their age. As a result, detransitioners frequently support that getting prescriptions is a breeze, and a total of 55% said that their medical evaluations felt inadequate, according to Dr. Littman's survey. In Helena's case, all it took was a testosterone prescription, one trip to Planned Parenthood when she was 18. She was given 4 times the typical starting dose by a nurse practitioner in less than an hour without seeing a doctor. What? So Chloe said she was fast-tracked through the entire transition from blockers to the mastectomy. In just 2 years with parental consent, the only pushback she said she encountered came from the first endocrinologist she saw, who agreed to prescribe her puberty blockers, but not testosterone, when she was 13. But she said she went to another doctor who gave her prescription with no trouble. So because all the therapists and specialists followed the affirmative care model, there wasn't a lot of gatekeeping throughout the whole transition process, she recalled. The professionals all seemed to push medical transition, so I thought it was the only path for me to be happy. So yeah, what happens when that's the only path that you're given? You know, like it's just you have to medically transition, and then there's constant like more and more and more, you know, surgeries or you know care. So Evans, the author of Gender Dysphoria, a therapeutic model working with children, adolescents, and young children, now runs his own private practice with his wife, Beckenham, in Beckenham, England. I mean, that's how you pronounce it.
Beckenham.
Where
Shout out
he
Beckenham.
helps parents struggling with how to address their children's dysphoria. A variety of studies suggest that that as many as 80% of dysphoric children could ultimately experience uh, dissidence or coming to terms with their biological gender without resorting to transition, which is why many professionals like Evans think is wise to hold off on potentially irreversible medical intervention for as long as possible. I'm not against transition. I just think that kids can't give informed consent. I mean, and if you followed along with any of the previous shows, Scott Nugent that we covered before, female, born biological female, lives as a transgender male now. They were in their 40s, and they're speaking out against it. They're actually in the UK doing a campaign over there about stopping kids from transitioning. So all these treatments run the risk of side effects that critics argue are too serious for children to fully understand. And the short-term puberty blockers can stunt growth, affect bone density, while the long-term side effects are unknown since they were only approved by the FDA in 1993. Side effects of testosterone include high cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, blood clots, even infertility. Currently, just 3 states, Arkansas, Arizona, and Texas, have policies limiting gender-affirming treatments for minors, including surgery, hormones, and speech therapy. For those who ultimately end up regretting their transition, the consequences of hormone therapy and surgery can be devastating. For Helena, testosterone caused emotionally instability that accumulated with 2 hospitalizations for self-harm. I mean, it's like you're literally taking a child that's going through puberty, or even before they go through puberty, and you're making them go through it at an accelerated rate of the opposite hormones of what they biologically should have. Now, that's scary to me. Just, you know, not being a medical professional, that's scary to me. So while in the hospital, she came to the realization that her transition was a mistake. Oh my gosh. I saw a montage of photos of me, and I saw how much my face changed and how unhappy I looked. I realized this was all effed up. I shouldn't have done it. It was a really dark time. And then so imagine like making everybody affirm that you are the opposite gender of what you were, you were born, that you were, raised or whatever. And then imagine having to suddenly tell everybody, yeah, we're gonna reverse that and go backwards. Like that's gotta be hard, especially for the people that go through like a battle to get everybody to, like if they had to fight with their parents to even get the care to or being bullied or whatever they go through for their whole process of it, right? Imagine then having to ask all those people, well, no, actually, I don't feel that way anymore. That's got to be hard. And I wonder how many people just continue and feel that way because detransitioning is so hard as well. So while in the hospital, I already read that part. Chloe said testosterone altered her bone structure, permanently sharpening her jawline and broadening her shoulders. She said she also struggled with an increased body and facial hair. She has a large scar across her chest from her mastectomy, which just what does it say? Disturbed about surgery. The recovery was very graphic process. It was definitely something I wasn't prepared for, and I couldn't even bear to look at myself sometimes. It would make me feel nauseous. Yeah, there's a lot of complications with surgeries, and just a surgery in general. You're at risk of dying, going under the knife anytime. You don't know how any of these people are going to react to, like a surgery. And it's considered to be, because it's an affirming care, it's considered to not be like an elective surgery. But detransitioners, I believe it becomes like seen as an elective if they don't have complications, because many have complications. Gravest of all concerns is her fertility. Although she'd like to have children one day, Chloe doesn't know whether the viability of her eggs was compromised by years of testosterone injections. She's working with doctors to find out, and her medical future is uncertain. I'm still in the dark about the overall picture of my health right now, she said. The subject of detransitioning is often met with vitriol from transgender activist community, which claims that stories like Chloe's and Helena's will be used to discredit the trans movement as a whole. This is understandable, although unlikely, as research reveals that up to 86% of trans adults feel that transitioning was the right long-term decision for them. But as more and more children are entrusted to make serious medical decisions with permanent implications, the numbers of disaffected detransitioners is almost certain to grow, and it is growing. That's why Dr. Anderson feels compelled to speak out on their behalf. As a transgender woman herself, some of my colleagues are worried that conversations about detransitioners is going to make more cannon fodder in culture wars. But my concern is that if we don't address these problems, there will be even more ammunition to criticize the appropriate work that I and other colleagues are doing. And like Anderson likes young people, and like Anderson, these young people who will forever live with the consequences of hastily transition, refuse to be silenced. I want my voice to be heard, said Chloe. I don't want history to repeat itself. I can't let this happen to other kids. So that's that article. So, I mean, it's a lot, I think. It's a lot to put on children, to have them responsible for so much. And then if they want to do transition, what happens? The community is turning their back on them.
That's right. You can't go backwards. This ride only goes this way.
Yeah. So
ironic.
It's really alarming to see this happening. So Chloe, that we just saw in that article, this is from January 10th of 2023. And this is her in an interview I have. So let me pull this up so we can hear, about from her own words, how she feels about it and how she's doing now. Because that other article was from the previous year. Let me see. I have put a note on my thing. 2 minutes and 22 seconds. Plus is here. All right. Wait, how do I get back to where we were? Okay. I'm going back and forth between two windows. All right, so I'm gonna mute us here, and I'm gonna play a little bit of this.
About 12 when you started suffering gender dysphoria. Started early after that. You had a double mastectomy at 15, very quickly. By 16, you regretted it, and you're now 18.
Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, it was just in maybe spring of 2022 that you first talked about this publicly. But let's sort of start at the beginning. Describe those early years, say when you were 12 years old. What was going on? What were you thinking?
I mean, really, I think it's important to start with my early childhood.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I live in a 2-parent household. Overall, I had a pretty, I'd say, normal early childhood,
Mhm.
but I wasn't exactly the easiest kid to raise. I did have some behavioral issues and issues with emotional regulation, and I was struggling a lot in school, both socially and with focusing in class.
So would you say both socially, so normal childhood, generally kind of normal family situation, normal struggles or kind of unusual struggles? Because of course, all of us that went through school pretty much uniformly say we didn't have that great of experience all the time, but would you say you had some very particular challenges at this stage?
Well, I started getting bullied at a pretty young age while I was in elementary school. I didn't really get along with other kids my age. Boys would pick on me. I wouldn't really get along with girls. As I got older, I did find it a little more easy to make friends, but it was usually with boys, and I never really ever fit in with other girls my age.
Would you describe yourself as a tomboy at
Yeah,
this
yeah,
point?
I was definitely a bit of a
Yeah.
tomboy. I did also have a bit of a feminine streak, but as I got older, I got kind of, I'm not exactly sure why, but I got kind of ashamed of that, and I tried to keep a more masculine facade, I guess you could say. I mean, a lot of the cartoons and comics I would read would portray girls, and especially like the feminine girl characters, as kind of like all like bubbly, pink, stupid.
This wasn't your ideal?
No, but you know, as I started to get older and relationships and socialization at school started to get more cliquey and a little more, I guess you could say, gender based. I started noticing that I didn't really get along with the other girls, and I started to wonder, like, just what exactly was setting me apart from them. Started to become a little bit insecure about this, and I also started developing some body issues around this time. I started using social media after I got my first phone at 11. The first platforms I used were primarily I used Instagram and Snapchat, which both of those are very like image oriented, and I would see a lot of very, you could say, idealized or sexualized images of adult women and young women on there. And you know, I noticed like a very particular body type, and I guess you'd say, faces, just features in general that I didn't really match up to, and I started to think like, because these women,
Yeah.
they were very curvy,
Mm-hmm.
had very large hips, thighs, breasts, small waist, and I didn't really look like this. I was a kid.
Yeah.
I wasn't very developed, but I was also a bit on the tomboyish side. I was a little athletic, so I had like larger shoulders. My
Mhm.
chest wasn't as developed, and I had a bit of muscle in my body. I also like to have my hair short then, and I mean, I felt like if anything, I looked compared to other girls, I felt like I looked like a boy, and it just felt like I couldn't really match up to other women, and
So it
I
wasn't.
kind of
So it wasn't that you rejected this idea of femininity or this particular portrayal. You just thought this doesn't look like me. This doesn't match me. And so that plus, would you say the kind of influence of social media and maybe things you heard in school? How did you
yeah.
initially get the idea of transitioning?
Yeah, it was through social media actually.
Yeah.
This was the topic of being gay or lesbian or
Mhm.
bisexual or transgender was never covered in any class that I was in. I mean, I just graduated last year, and the subject was never really brought up, but it was basically entirely just social media.
Yep.
On Instagram, I started seeing like a lot of LGBT content first through like communities about like video games or anime or artwork. A lot of the people in those communities were, for some reason, they just so happened to identify as like gay or non-binary or transgender, and I started seeing a lot more content that was focused on that. And
I mean, would you say that, so did this idea of transitioning, of identifying as a boy, or at least not identifying as a girl, did it come on slowly, or did you have a kind of realization at some point that you
yeah,
were persuaded? Which
yeah.
was?
The algorithm started to change and
Yeah.
show me more content that was LGBT focused,
Mm-hmm.
and it basically went from like artwork and people who just so happened to talk about like their life experiences to you could say it was propaganda, really.
Yeah, yeah. And so did you go through this?
So she starts to open up more further on in this interview. The link for the whole thing will be in the show notes. We're not going to watch the whole thing, obviously, um, but I thought it was really interesting to to see where she was at then and how she still feels the same way now, and now she's an advocate for people to not have children transition.
I think all these kids could, a lot of this could be subverted if there was just like a Ziggy Stardust phase. You have to do the David Bowie for like a year and a half. 18 months. You have to do the Ziggy Stardust, and then once you get through that phase, then those people can decide if they're the therapies and all of those things are worthwhile. That way, it will give them a chance to be in those roles before actually changing their bodies at all. You know what I mean? And like
yeah, but they find that even doing that transition like that is that most of the time they end up moving to become
they
medical.
want to do it because it just affirms, right?
Yep.
So it's like the opposite thing that I would want to happen with it. I would just think like experience life like this for a minute and then, or maybe just a short time. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
Well, how about we're accepting of people want to, you know what I mean? Like how come we aren't more focused on, not worrying about being, in the gender norms that like we are so we have that society has like a stranglehold on.
Yeah.
Right? Like why don't we break those social all those stereotypes and stop using them And like it's really crazy to me. I bring this up often, you know, like I can wear men's clothes and it's not looked at as an odd thing. I think everything I'm wearing today, like externally, is like I'm wearing sweatpants. They're men's. The shirt I'm wearing is men's, and this hoodie is probably like more like a unisex or a men's hoodie. It's definitely not like a female hoodie. The arms are like way too long on me. So that's not seen upon as being weird or anything. Like women shopping in the men's department isn't weird. But if you saw a traditional man, a biological male shopping in like the women's underwear department for themselves, like there would be a different reaction from many people. Me personally, I've helped guys go in the women's department that like wanted to buy that stuff, but like couldn't because they didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, we're
You
not
know,
Applejack's. Like I thought we were talking about him, and we kind of are now. You know, like if you have you need to seek out some kind of funny underwears. There's no shame in it. What? I got sidetracked. I thought for a second. There should be something. There shouldn't be some sort of gauge at the stopping point before the doctor says, "Okay, go pick up your testosterone in the morning." You know what I mean? Like
it's harder for
there has
people
to be a
like to
thing
get
there.
medications that they need that are life saving.
Yeah.
Okay, it's harder for people to get things like insulin and you know life saving heart medications or getting things you know approved by insurance. But with this, they're just like it's a free for all. Basically that's what it feels like. So I'm gonna go back to this for a minute because she goes into I believe at this mark where I put it is where she goes into more of like you know what happened with surgery for her.
Mhm.
What?
Nothing. Popeye sent pictures of the empanadas he made on Instagram.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna play this. Oh, I forgot to mute us. I have to go back and do that. Okay.
Therapist would ask,
They look yummy.
do your feelings of depression have to do with your gender dysphoria? And I was like, no, I mean, I'm already pretty well into my transition and I pass as the opposite sex, so I don't really get what the problem is. I didn't realize until much later that it was actually my transition that was worsening um, issues that were going unaddressed or even creating new issues. Um, so in the middle of my sophomore year, I, I'd been binding for a few years and I used a compression device called a chest binder, which had like it covered part of my torso, and I would wear it for about maybe around like 8 to 12 hours a day.
When did you start that? When did you start the binder wearing?
Yeah, after the groping incident, actually.
After the groping
very
incident.
very soon after that was
Okay.
when I bought my first binder.
Yeah.
I got sick of wearing this thing because
I can
I would have to wear it for so long whenever we had like guests over at the house or whenever I was out of the house in public. And I would wear it while working out or swimming, and I wanted to be free of it. It just sucked to wear.
Yeah.
And I had that additional trauma from having been groped,
Yep.
and which I didn't recognize that I had actually during that incident. Because nobody noticed or cared, I just kind of brushed it off as like, oh, it's just boys being boys, and if I want to be a boy, then I can't cry about it.
Yeah.
And I knew that even if I was upset by it, I couldn't reach out to anybody because if I brought it up to the school, they'd probably just give the kid a slap on the wrist, and much worse could have happened to me. And I genuinely fell into the delusion that I was actually a boy, despite living in the body of biological female. And naturally, I wanted to look like the boys my age. I wanted to be able to take off my shirt, not have to worry about like comments in the locker room, or just be able to like work out and swim shirtless.
Okay, so had the doctors at this point, so you're on testosterone, you're using a chest binder. Had they described, I mean, thinking back on this, Had they described the details of what this would do for your potential capacity to nurse children, to bear children later in life? Was there kind of clear and obvious disclosure of this, or was it mentioned?
Yeah.
So it was discussed.
Yeah, they did tell me.
How did you feel about that? Did you not care at that point, or?
Well, I didn't care about that point because I wasn't thinking about having kids. I was
Yeah.
15.
Yeah, you're 15, which no 15-year-old thinks that way. And then you're also saying, you said you're under the delusion that you're a boy, and boys don't have kids.
Yeah.
Is that the thinking?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, well, boys don't breastfeed, so why
Yeah.
would I want to do that?
Yeah, yeah. So this. I think that's an absolutely crucial part of this, because it's
Yeah.
very hard. People can understand. It's easy to understand. Okay, I wasn't thinking about having kids when I was 15, but I'm a boy, so I never was actually thinking about the fact that I'm not going to be able to bear children or breastfeed. Right? It never occurred to me because it's not my capacity. And if you're under the delusion that you're a boy, then that's going to be the same kind of thinking you're gonna undergo. So, how did your parents take the idea of the double mastectomy? Did they struggle with that more, or was it simply kind of a part of the process at this point for them?
I think they really did struggle with it. I
Mhm.
mean, throughout my transition, they really did struggle. My relationship with them was pretty strained, especially towards the middle and later stages. They were told by the doctors at the beginning that the regret rates are less than 1 to 2%, which isn't
Wow.
true. We don't know that. We don't
No.
know that.
Yeah, we don't have long-term studies.
They
so
weren't told.
yeah.
Yeah, they weren't told that the rate of desistance amongst minors who haven't been medicalized is anywhere from around 60 to 90%. There were a lot of things that weren't disclosed to them,
Right.
but they were told that if I wasn't allowed to transition as I pleased, I would have been at risk of suicide.
Okay. So they were told, yeah, do you want a live son or a dead daughter, effectively? So there was absolute certainty on that. Lack of clarity
Mhm.
on the obvious risks, or simply the simple unknown of the risk. And then for your own part, you sort of understood at an abstract level, okay, I won't ever be able to breastfeed, but so what? I'm a boy. So yeah, this is the thinking. So do you mind describing a little bit about the surgery and the aftermath and what that was like?
He was younger than that, I think. So I find yes, Steve is making comments in the YouTube chat about how creepy he thinks this guy is.
Hella creepy. I mean, like Mormon phys ed teacher creepy. I don't know, man. I'm just nope. No, sir, I don't like it. Also, this child was younger than 16.
Oh yeah.
When all their
we just saw in the article.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pull that back up?
Zainab said 13 when they started and 15 when she had top surgery.
So she was 12 years old when she decided she was transgender, and at 13 she came out to her parents.
Yeah.
And then the same year she was put on puberty blockers and prescribed testosterone. And at 15 she underwent a double mastectomy. And then by 16 she realized it was a mistake. That's in the first paragraph of that article that we read. So yeah, I mean, I can't imagine like just being that young and making that huge decision.
Yeah, very crazy.
Oh, I can't get all of this article. Do you have it? Never mind. I'm not going to read that one.
Yeah, that guy would definitely have sex with your body before he ate it. I mean, I'm just getting those vibes right from the
Before
jump.
he what?
What?
Did you say
And
before
he's from Utah, most likely.
Did you say before he ate it?
Yeah. Salty said it, and I agree. I concur. Popeye's been to Utah. I think he would agree. And I only use the word Mormon because everyone knows how weird they're weird pseudo-conservative with 75 wives and children. I, you know, whoa.
So I have a podcast that I found where
Podcaster, who is it?
a mother, well, it's called the Daily Signal,
Okay.
but the mother had a child that was female that came to her and said that she was transgender. And I felt like this was really interesting because the mother talks about, I don't have my time on this. The mother talks about how she handled the situation. And I thought it was really, it was really interesting what she said. So I think if I start it here. All right, I have to add this back to the screen. Sorry, it's a little bit wonky. I have to go back and forth between the tabs. Okay. I'm going to mute us. I'm going to play this for a minute.
And how long did she identify as trans, and what did that look like?
She identified as trans for about 1.5 years, at least from what we knew, because she was doing things in secret, of course. She had secret social media accounts. We thought we were smart parents. We thought we were on it. The kids are just more technologically advanced. And so she had fake, like shadow accounts where she had a trans identity. And but over the pandemic is when we really learned it, because her public school changed her name to a male name and used male pronouns, without, of course, involving us. This school never met my daughter because it was the pandemic and she never stood in their doors or in a classroom. And so we pulled her from that school because I thought, what an overreach.
Yeah.
And the school used, the term safe. We need to be a safe space. Well, she's in my home. So by extension, I must be unsafe. And what do you know of me? Name one thing about me. Of course they couldn't. And that's when the house of cards started to just fall. And I need to just back up a little bit before she actually, came out with the new name and whatnot. Her mental health had plummeted severely. Depression, getting very dark, mean. Like, this child was a sweet kid, and she just didn't want to come to family dinners. Decorated her room in kind of goth, emo, dark, almost, a little like, I don't know, demonic things. And her whole personality changed. She wasn't the child that I knew anymore.
And was she, or were you all as a family talking to counselors, psychologists, doctors? Was there any kind of that input coming in?
Well, there was. I mean, we of course quickly engaged a psychologist. Again, I was clueless that we should have vetted her. We should have understood whether she's an affirming psychologist or not. She, of course, was an affirming psychologist, as they pretty much all are in California.
Yeah.
She quickly told us that we needed to call her by the male name and male pronoun, or she would commit suicide. She cited a study that said 41% chance of kids committing suicide. She didn't read the study. I know that because I queried her about the study after I read it, and it was clear she's just taking a headline and, regurgitating it. I found out that she used Diane Aaron Saff as her mentor in transgender kids, using her terms.
And who is Diane, if you would?
So Diane Aaron Saff is a psychologist at UCSF.
Mm-hmm.
Her claim to fame is that she believed in the satanic panic, which of course was debunked. And she believes in the transgender child and says things as moronic as when a child is unbuttoning their onesie to turn it into like a dress, that is gender communicating.
Mm.
Okay.
The fuck was that?
Yes.
If you unbutton your onesie when you're in your crib, that means you're trying to turn your buttoned onesie into a dress. So that's gender affirmation. Somebody should kick them people in the nuts because that's some fucking bullshit. What the fuck
Isn't
is
this?
that?
I mean, it's crazy when you start hearing
Come
about it because you
on.
don't hear about the detransition. You don't hear about this side of this enough.
That is not that's
Really
just
don't.
not a signal. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, no, maybe the child is just uncomfortable. They're
Yeah.
curious. There is a lot of reasons
Maybe.
why.
Yeah, there's maybe about 8,000 fucking reasons why a baby might wiggle out of its fucking onesie. Like, are you serious right now? Oh, Salty says the pussification sequence is taking place around the world.
When Gray Walker said when folks were bringing this stuff up a few years ago, they were shouted, down and harassed. Yeah. Oh yeah. I get a lot of backlash for covering this, and to me, it's really important to cover because the numbers are growing, and if we're not talking about it and with compassion and care, you know what I mean, and wanting what's best, then we're going to have the only conversation about this will be from the other side, the more conservative side, where they don't always have as much compassion and care.
No.
That typically people more to the left have.
The problem I see,
they have different, like, they think about things in a different manner. So, like, I feel like we need to have the balance and we need to talk about it because they do exist. Detrans people do exist, and they deserve the love and the support as well. All humans do, whether you agree with them or not.
I think all the people should definitely, you're not going to stop loving someone. That's just stupid. The idea that these kids are able to, say that this is how I am at such a young age and have these things happen, and the doctors being disingenuous about the severity of these therapies and how long lasting and how unreversible a lot of it is. And I
mean, imagine having osteoporosis as a teenager.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a shortage of doctors being forthcoming with this information because they don't want to like be the reason that, you have to tell your child that no, you can't transition like everybody else and that's like the end of the world. And it's entire friend groups going at one time. Yeah, it's not just like single. And this is not just happening in the United States. This is actually that we've covered this previously, where they actually have closed gender affirming clinics. Yeah, because things were not being handled properly. It's definitely a thing that should be talked about because, like I said, there's an effort to give people the impression that the therapies and the surgeries and stuff are in fact reversible. And that's just not the case. And that's the reason why it's fucked up.
Yeah, there's too much
in the first place.
gaslighting around
so
it.
much gaslighting about
You know,
every
like,
aspect of it.
We need the truth of all of it, so that's how you make an informed decision. That's why we've been talking about, like, you know, since I started the show, is just people being able to make informed decisions with like consent. You know what I mean? We need to have informed consent. We need to, you know, people need to be able to make whatever decisions for their own bodies all around all the time. And if they're not being told all the information, then that's a problem. If they're being pushed to do something like think about the opioid epidemic and how that was completely pushed. Think about even further back when they used to do like lobotomies and stuff like that as care, or other things that they've gotten wrong and that have been pushed onto society. And it was told that it was like the best thing at the time.
Right.
So we have to question these things. We have to question them, and we have to talk about them, because if the numbers are growing, this is already, I feel like, out of control. And I feel like it's just going to get worse if people are silent about it.
Snowy said that lady looks like a female Skeletor. And I said her mom was Skeletor's assistant. And John Kemper said he was thinking that too.
Yeah,
she's not rocking the makeup. She's going straight up, you know, this is my face.
It might be bad lighting and where she's at and whatever, but that's not the point. Her physical appearance is not the point of what she's saying.
No, she's saying important stuff.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, so I'm gonna go back and I want to play this a little bit more. Oh, I have to mute all stuff. I keep forgetting that.
I think
another insipid statement of hers is that if a little girl rips barrettes out of her hair, she is gender communicating. So in my mind, she's a quack. I mean, the absurdity, anybody who's had children understands that children will rip off their mittens. And what does that mean? You know, that they identify as an iguana? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just nonsensical. And this psychologist also told me that my memory of my child was false. When I talked about how girly my daughter was, like actually contrary to me, because I'm not girly, and she was really girly and into Barbies and American Girl doll and Little Ponies and all of that. And she said, well, she was hiding her true gender identity. I mean, that's just so absurd. Sign her up for a Mensa, because you think my 2-year-old was planning on outing herself when she was, 14 or 13, and she'd been planning this. Like, that's amazing. So it reinforced that there's no science behind this, that this is all smoke and mirrors and it's made up. And so, of course, we fired the psychologist.
Yeah. How were you doing at that point as a mom? What was running through your head?
I was not doing well, of course.
Shit, I was just gonna say something about that part that she just said, and I totally just went blank. Oh, the point I thought of. Okay, so, and it's also true that not every female is raised in the exact same environment, right? But we all have similar traits of being a female, right? So like if you look at like just the general population, some households, the moms are, your mom might be like a super feminine mom. You might have a mom that was like, there's just a array of what females are. We're not all exactly the same in every single way with our personality, with like the things that we like, whether we were tomboys or we were really more girly, or, like, not all of us are the same in that way either. and that has an effect, like, right, that must have an effect of who you are as growing up, but suddenly that the doctor thinks that if you take your barrettes out of your hair, then you know what I mean, it couldn't be that you just didn't like how they felt.
Okay. Come on.
Oh, Leo's having a hard time in his basket. So not everybody's mother is exactly the same or behaves the same way. All right, let me go back to this. I think I would more.
Go get your basket.
Signs around the house. I made it very clear. I do not believe in this.
Yeah.
Your mother, who you used to respect and who you used to think was intelligent, does.
Oh yeah. So this is after the mother was saying this. I thought was important. This is when she starts talking about what they did after they decided that they weren't going to continue forward with this.
Doesn't believe in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not an activist by trade. I and I'm like, but your mom's doing this crazy thing.
Yeah.
She's going out there with signs and, and then I had books all over my house. Abigail Schreier's book was in every room. You couldn't miss it. Aaron Brewer's book was in every room. Maria Keffler's. Like, I made it very clear.
Mm-hmm.
I had boxes of them.
Yeah.
That we don't believe in this.
Yeah.
And I think that was an important thing. And then we did some, I did some, I call them drive-bys, because I would make her listen to cult podcasts with me. And so we'd be on a long drive and we'd listen to the Moonies and we'd listen to this cult and the Vow and whatever. And then after a couple of them, I would say, some people think transgenderism is a cult.
Mm.
And I'd walk away.
Yeah.
And let her think about it. So I did a lot of things like that, kind of coming around it in a different way. When the Johnson & Johnson vaccine came out and wasn't good for females, I said, well, is it good for you?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would leave.
Mm-hmm.
Not wait. You don't want to have the battle.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of want to leave little drops.
Asking the questions.
Yeah. And she was in the car. She was a captive audience. I played a podcast with Helena, a detransitioner. And my daughter's story was very similar to Helena's in that my daughter was into anime, got into cosplay, shipping, the parallels were there. And so we were on a long car ride. She was forced to at least hear it in the background. And I know that she listened to it because when I started to play the second half, she said, "Oh, we already heard this part." So it's just kind of start to unravel it for her.
Yeah.
And make it come from her.
Mm-hmm. And how old is she now?
She's 16.
Okay. And how is your relationship with her now?
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like I said,
she's beautiful.
Yeah.
And because of your work with Our Duty, I know that you have spoken to so many parents who've walked in these same shoes. How common is your story, is your daughter's story? I mean, are there common threads and themes that you're seeing as you're hearing other family stories?
All of our stories are similar. All I need to know is your child male or female, and the age of the child, and I could probably fill in, the facts about your child. And to me, that's insane. Like, why can't the medical community do the same? Because our stories are all the same. Mm-hmm. The kid that was bullied, into anime, same-sex attracted, is another one that's in there. Watched a lot of porn. Porn's a huge component, especially for the boys. For the boy, autism. I mean, we know all these factors, and so it's pretty clear. It's clear to those of us in the parent space what the markers are for a child who's going to get caught up in this.
Okay. Wow. And through the work of Our Duty,
So the link for that podcast, I'm gonna leave it in the show notes for this show. I suggest that you go and listen to it. It's really it was kind of like eye-opening to me to hear that from a mom's perspective. And as I've looked into this and the detransitioning, and so with her, they realized what it was, and she basically said, you can be mad at me, you can blame me all you want, and she just kind of deprogrammed, and told her child, this isn't going to happen, we're not doing this is and so she left the books about it around there. She talked about how she she planted all those seeds in her child's head about and how to get through to her, and so that they could start to maybe have a conversation. But I mean, we are failing children. We are failing the children. And when it is not just one or two kids, and now it's an entire group of kids, and it's a trend among kids, and their entire friend group is trans, and they become, they're self-identified and become part of this inclusive, all this attention, all of this, all eyes on them. They, and they become part of a protected class. You are literally putting them up on a pedestal above everybody else. And what does that do? What are the effects of that? It's basically making people completely entitled. Just entitled to all kinds of things. Have they never heard the word no?
I don't know. I agree with Little that the government should pay to put a turbocharger on his Honda Civic because it wants to be a Porsche. And who are they to deny it with their oppressive smog Nazi laws? I agree. If your Honda wants to be a Porsche, as long as your Honda is of age, was your Honda, built after, say, I don't know, 2002? Or, before or after? Not too far after.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be, I don't know. There's another group that say we have 20 Apollo missions instead of just 17. All right. Yeah. I don't believe them. You sound like a right winger, Lucky. Oh my goodness. I knew it. We knew eventually our wings, you would see our wings. We have the best.
Well, so the Daily Signal is going to be below the link for the rest of that podcast. I hope you'll go and listen to it. And then there's a documentary called Affirmation Generation. And we're gonna play a little bit of that. Oh, whoops. Oopsie. I had to. That's the thing, and I need to. Oh, wait. I have to add this to the screen. Sorry. Yeah. What happened?
John Gimber says, my Transit wants to be a tank, and I'm on a 50 cal mounted. I said, our 91 Dodge B250 van wants to be a 4x4. I said, Lucky doesn't know it, but they came out to me. It? She? I don't know. How do pronouns suck, man. Van. The van told me. Said, you know what would be good under here? A big old giant 4x4.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Make a rock climber out of it. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna go back and mute us.
It is the latest fight over transgender rights.
2 rallies, 2 opposing messages in downtown Nashville tonight.
I will do everything that I can do at the federal level to make certain that we protect our children.
State Representative Elizabeth Guzman's proposal would make it a crime for parents who do not affirm their children's gender identity.
Protesters in Texas rallying against alleged child abuse investigations targeting parents of transgender youth.
Radical gender theory has progressed rapidly from the assertion that sex and gender are two different things, one biological and one socialized, to some asserting that biological sex is either not real or on a spectrum.
We introduce some people who are called detransitioners, these people who are choosing to reverse the process.
Hormones do have implications. They have long-term effects, and they have and of course, surgery has lifelong effects. They're not reversible.
Medical experts, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, say gender-affirming care is safe and best practice for transgender patients.
NHS advising doctors not to encourage children to change their names and pronouns.
To everyone celebrating Transgender Day of Visibility, I want you to know that your president sees you.
And it's okay to ask questions about something that's very new and involves children. The answer can't always be that anyone from a marginalized community is automatically right, trump card, mic drop, end of discussion. Because we're literally experimenting on children.
So the puzzle is, why out of nowhere in the last decade have we seen a sudden and sharp spike of teenage girls who have no childhood history of gender dysphoria suddenly deciding they're trans, often with their girlfriends?
The best way that I can describe dysphoria is one night I remember having a dream that I was a boy. I felt so happy after waking up from that dream. It just felt like I was excited to be alive. And then I got up and went and looked in the mirror, and just that happiness was like crushed. So as a child, I was somewhat gender nonconforming. When I was really little, I used to dress up in my dad's clothes, but things didn't get really bad until puberty. And then I just started to feel very uncomfortable in my body, very uncomfortable with the changes that were happening.
Ever since I was as young as I can remember, I'd always had an issue with my identity, mostly the way that I looked, talked, dressed. I think it got into my head growing up, I would be happier if I was a woman. I would be more satisfied with myself if I was a woman. I would love myself more if I was a different person.
As a child, what I didn't know, I didn't call it internalized homophobia because I didn't know the term for it. But that's when I started noticing the stigma over homosexuality. I recognized the guilting, the shaming of same-sex attraction within society and culture alone.
So my whole growing up, from a very small tomboy child until I was almost about 30 years old, I thought that I was what we used to call a transsexual.
It was from the age of around about 3, and it just didn't feel right in my brain. What the hell am I, a girl? Something's gone wrong here, like, because this doesn't make sense. I remembered that very, very intense feeling, and it lasted for many years. And I remember how difficult it was to pull out of it, and how humiliated I felt when I realized with the shock I was stuck with my body.
When I was about 15, I started really getting into like self-expression, and I sort of opened up out of this sort of depressed shell I was in. But with that identity expression came exploration of gender identities, which I learned about on Tumblr and at school in the Gay Straight Alliance Club.
Just starting to get on social media in 2008, and specifically I was on Tumblr, and that's probably the very first time I ever heard the term transgender and had an idea of what this concept of gender identity meant. I felt like it answered questions. It answered the question, why was I being bullied when I was in elementary school? Oh, it must have been because I was transgender. Why didn't I like dresses? Why didn't I want to wear makeup like when every other little girl did? Stuff like that. I was just like, oh, all of this is because I'm transgender. Like, so many of my friends are starting to identify as transgender and are starting to transition, and it feels like something that is really, it's catching fire.
Roughly 2013, 2014, one after the next teenager was announcing a trans identification in numbers that greatly exceeded what would be expected. And it was apparent that these kids were all from the same friend.
So this is the same doctor that was in that first article that we covered at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. Friendship group.
This has been documented not only at clinics in the United States, but also across Europe. A several thousand% increase in teenage girls in particular. The ratio now is about 80% girls, 20% boys with gender dysphoria.
So then when I was 13, I was browsing the web one day and I found a forum for female to male people, and it had tips on how to pass. It had people telling their stories of transitioning and saying that they'd had chest surgery, that they used to have female genitals and now they had male genitals, and just the way they were talking about it, they made it sound like it was entirely possible to change sex.
Now just know, like, how truly easy it is for you to go and get treatment if you live in an area with informed consent treatment. I literally made an appointment with a doctor's office in Chicago. I live in Indiana. So I drove up to Chicago. I went to a doctor's appointment that I had set up for 2 weeks prior. Like, it was very quick. And then that day I received estrogen.
I don't think that many people know that young people can walk into a Planned Parenthood in many different states and just walk out with hormones. But the Planned Parenthoods are operating on what's called an informed consent model. And if they sign a piece of paper saying that they acknowledge the risks, then they can be given these powerful hormones with irreversible side effects.
Isn't that crazy how quickly they can get these medications?
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's no like regulatory anything. It's just like, oh, you feel this way, okay.
Zainab said, out of 7 moms I know with my daughters.
With daughters my age, all of them have daughters considering themselves trans. Most have autistic kids too, like mine. It's anecdotal, but very alarming. Out of 7.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of.
What?
That's a lot. See, that's the thing is that I think that the numbers, I don't even think that they have grasped it all yet. I mean, imagine if they did a survey at every public school, they still wouldn't capture all the children.
That's another valid point that, we haven't really even touched yet. Like the thing facilitating this mostly, right? Like they just showed, if you go to a Planned Parenthood, those are the same folks that love the fucking, that bring to you eugenics in, economically depressed areas, like always. Like there's more of them than anything else. Those in liquor stores, it's very real that they have an agenda and they're trying to eliminate.
Oh, absolutely, they have an agenda too. Everybody, that's the thing is that
Steve Wolfberger.
There is an agenda everywhere, and that's why we covered the last time. We covered how much money there is.
Yeah,
in transgender care.
Huge money in. Yeah, huge money in it.
I mean, there is so many. I mean, if you have the stomach for it, you can look up, transgender surgeries and stuff that have gone wrong, and you can see some pretty atrocious things. I mean, there are many children that I mean, like having your breasts removed, that is a big deal.
Yeah, having your penis removed, also
and then,
a big
deal. And then sometimes males will have their genitalia removed, or they no longer produce testosterone, and you know what? They suddenly realize that it was only about cross-dressing, that it really was a thing, that they just enjoyed that, and that's what it was, and it wasn't really they were transgender, but they don't have their testicles.
Yeah, you don't want to learn that after the fact.
And
you cannot
that's just like
order
such a
those
disservice
parts.
to do that to somebody, to disfigure somebody, you know what I mean? And then because they didn't realize it at the time. Like I think there needs to be a better vetting process with this. It shouldn't be a rushed through thing like it is. It's doing a disservice to people. And like, what about the fact that we don't have healthcare in this country? Like,
Yeah. If it's just crazy how quickly it's turned from this is a thing that you go to the doctor and they assess you for like years at a time and see how you are and how everything's gonna be before they even start giving you anything to change your body. All of that has been foregone, and now you can decide when you're 12. What in the fuck facilitated that? Some demented stuff is going on to make that the okay thing. That's fine. That's, whatever. That's just how it is now. You can be 12 and you can tell the doctor, listen, bitch, I'm tired of I'm tired of being a boy.
What other thing can you go in
What
and
the fuck?
self-diagnose, and the doctor just has to take your word for it?
That's very, very crazy. It's crazy.
You know what I mean? I can't go into a doctor and be like, I mean, maybe like say you're depressed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but there's a list of symptoms that you know what they are. You know, I mean, like, and I don't see people lining up to say that, you know what I mean? They're, forcing a doctor to say that they have depression. And, you know what I mean? Like, that's something that you can,
Brown shoes don't make
self,
it.
Diagnose.
Quit
But
school.
I mean,
Yeah. I think it's nuts, how far it's gotten to where this, like, us saying these things is somehow outside of, like, other, huge groups of people's reality. Like, what we're saying right now, that it's not okay for children to make these decisions, and it's not okay for these doctors to be making literally billions of dollars off of this, and it's not okay for groups of kids to convince other groups of kids that they all need to do this thing that is potentially going to harm them for a lifetime and turn them into a compromised version of themselves.
what is going to happen to these children 10 years down the road?
That's what I mean.
Are we going to
it's
see
just
increase?
mind-boggling that-
Are we going to see a mind-boggling amount of suicides?
I think that's what's inevitable in this situation, in this case scenario. And I think that's the end result, that the powers that be that are facilitating this and pouring money into it and popularizing it and having influencers fucking tell kids it's the way to go, it's the cool, it's the cat's ass, that's just disturbing altogether. And I can't believe that I'm on the right wing side of, like, this perspective. Like, how did they manage to stumble into, like,
The common
thinking about
sense is
the
just
common
not
sense?
there. Like the actual critical thinking
they
of
wanna,
this is not there.
It doesn't add up to like, how do we arrive here at this place and then dial it back so people say, no, homie, that's fucked up, don't do that.
We have to talk about the detransition. We have to talk about the things that we're talking about.
We have to talk about these
We have to
things,
make
and
it like
yes.
something that is part of the conversation, that it is an important part of the conversation. Because I think that there's more people affected by this than what they realize.
Yeah.
I think that I mean, I should have done a poll. Like, do you know somebody who is trans? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I do.
Yep.
I mean, it's not a rare thing anymore.
It's crazy how that works. Is like the speed at which the trans movement is traveling. It's just picking up passengers. It's just picking up speed, man. This thing is cranking. You got groups of doctors trying to stand up against it, and other doctors saying, no, you guys are terrible, you guys are monsters, you won't let these children do
and
this.
you're bigots, and they
What?
want it. And one extreme, you know what I mean, and one extreme, like, there are states that are saying that if you don't affirm your child's care, that we can take your child from you.
Yeah.
And then there's one saying that you can't do anything along the sort, like, with your child. And if you do anything, then it is, you know what I mean? It is abuse. And it's like, but there's no conversation happening about it.
Right. There's no nuance in between the two things. It's like either you're
It's
in
like
a place
one
where
extreme,
they
you're either for all of it or you're against
where they're
all
like,
of it.
no, we're just eliminating it, or yes, you better do this, or you're at fault and you'll suffer the penalties of law.
And you're the
that's a real thing.
And then they are saying things like, trans, it's a trans genocide.
It definitely is being pushed in that narrative. The trans genocide narrative is like so inverted from reality that it bears mentioning, but I hate to even like say the words because it's so crazy. It's crazy. V.S. Adams, nice to see you. It's almost like it's being pushed. It is being pushed, Salty. In certain areas, it is definitely being pushed on certain channels, on Twitch, on YouTube, on different social media platforms. There are groups of people pushing the fuck out of this and making it appealing to young
And it
people.
depends on where your state politically reside, like where it kind of rests.
Yep. They
Like
politicize
it is
Yes.
completely along political lines for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think puberty is comfortable for anybody to go through, and then go through it as somebody like, you know, that you know, just is maybe autistic, and you know, like you have mental health issues or
sort of other stuff.
depression,
Yeah.
all these like underlying conditions, all these other things that could be huge factors to not even consider those other
yeah.
things have something to do with it. It's just like, it's so alarming. It's
And then they want to, instead of like addressing those issues that you're talking about, they're like, here, take these drug therapies. Here's like, inundate yourself with testosterone. You know what I mean? Oh, you feel bad. Here you go. Now you're going to feel better. Here's some more fucking serotonin producing fucking shit.
and then they
twist you
and
around,
then you have
man.
to have a surgery, and then you just like you know, like it starts out as a little bit, and then it continues on. It's a lot. There's a lot of money in this.
We're weeks into this, Gray Walker, so I don't think we're behind anything. I think coming to terms with what it is and what, you know, what needs to be said about it.
Yeah, we've been covering this for a while.
I've been talking about it for a while, and the fact is that, you know, we're only going to say the things that we feel about it, and you know, Lucky's been part of the gay and lesbian community for forever, so it's like it's not like
We've been talking about
We've been
this
talking
for
about this for years, bro.
but I haven't publicly like covered it on the show until more.
But
recently.
now it's just like it's imperative because people are unaware of what's actually taking place. Like, oh, why you cover that? Oh,
well, yeah,
because
and
it's
like
important.
I had a good friend that went through the entire, you know, sex change operation and transitions. Like, I'm talking, God, this is a good like 13, 14 years back. So this isn't a new thing to me at all. This is not something that's new. And that person is actually a transsexual because they've had they were diagnosed with gender dysphoria, which isn't a requirement now to be considered trans. You don't have to have gender dysphoria. They are changing the definitions of everything. Yeah, I've never had a problem with transgender people, transsexuals.
No, I don't have a problem with any of those people, any kind of people at all, ever.
They're in our lives.
I have a problem with doctors fast tracking, you know, questionable fucking morality and ideas in these fucking young people and scarring them. That's not cool.
Well, I mean, yeah, and then as we covered before, with Scott, what happened, and Scott was 42 and now says, I won't even live long enough to see my grandchildren, like because of all the complications from having the surgery. All right, I want to get back to the to this that we were playing, the Affirmation Generation documentary, a little bit more, because I think it's really interesting.
Attended a support group for people who were thinking about whether or not they wanted to transition. And within that group, I did get a lot of useful information. How shall we say it? in retrospect, a lot of that information was really ideological and it wasn't necessarily true. Ultimately, the two therapists that were running that group were both transgender. And one day they said, we have this clinic that's sort of down the road. Their resident doctors are looking for patients that their resident doctors are looking for transgender patients. They want experience with transgender patients. So I saw one of those therapists for probably about an hour, and he wrote a letter recommending testosterone for me.
The therapist said, I'm automatically transgender, and she does not want to gatekeep me on anything. And she had my letter to transition right away after my first session with her.
My parents took me to a gender therapist, and what I think they thought would happen is that this person would work with me on my gender issues, maybe get to the root cause, and maybe I would end up being trans, maybe not. But what happened is they took me to this person and he affirmed my trans identity within 2 appointments, really the first appointment. And I think it was the 3rd appointment that he suggested I start testosterone.
If you want, let me.
My voice started to drop, which excited me because I'd always wanted to be able to sing lower notes. For the first couple of months being on testosterone, I did think it was the right decision. I felt very energetic, almost euphoric. I enjoyed the changes that were happening to my body at first.
At first, it was a positive thing that I had this label of like androgyny and being genderqueer.
The first few years, it was novel. It was very interesting. All these changes happening to my body. They were things that I was okay with, that I was happy with at that time.
Hey guys, it's Ren. Today is October 8th, 2010, and I'm 1 week on testosterone.
I'm 7 weeks on testosterone, a little over 10 weeks on testosterone. I would say I had a 99.9% chance that I was never going to regret this.
There was definitely a honeymoon phase. In the beginning of hormone therapy, everything felt great. My body felt great. My mind felt clear. I was also becoming an internet influencer pretty quickly. I am 5 months on hormones, about 5.5 months. And since my last update, there have been a lot of changes. So as many of you know, I take estrogen shots, but this one is particularly important because once I put it into my body, I will be 6 months on estrogen. Sometimes you never think that the things in life that you want are going to happen eventually. It turned out to make me more dysphoric. It turned out to make me uncomfortable. The more that happened to my body, the scareder I got, and I came to the realization that I don't feel like I'm actually transgender. A hell of a realization to have.
That's got to be like something coming to that realization.
Yeah, after you're invested that much into this, and then to realize, oh my God, the thing that I'm doing is making me feel worse. Okay, this is not going to work. You know what I mean? Like, and how much damage have you done to yourself by then?
Yeah. How many things in your pursuit of thinking, you know what I mean? Like for whatever reason, how many, you know what I mean? How many things did you ignore that maybe you shouldn't have that, because it's easy to do that. Like, like people do that in relationships. They do that with new jobs. You know what I mean? You're euphoric at first. You're excited about it. You accept things. You don't see the red flags. You don't, you know what I mean? Because we have our eyes on, the good of something. We don't always, you know what I mean, see the red flags of it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we can make decisions and then go, oh wait, I ignored all that, because I thought that this end result was going to be, as life-changing as it is for the people who do have gender dysphoria, so it's like,
yeah, and the parents who object to this are called terrorists, Gray Walker said. Yep.
Yeah
Twisted. How dare you have questions or be upset by the harm that has been caused,
and then to lose the community that has made you feel so, like affirmed in your care and uplifted, and you have this whole like sense of like community that suddenly rejects you.
Oh, treason.
Your entire community just like rejects you.
Teresa needs a wrench.
All right, I'm going to mute us and go back to this for a little while. This is really good. I hope you guys will finish watching it.
At around 2.5, 3 months, I started to notice some concerning side effects. I'm not sure if this was from the binding or the testosterone or both, but I started to have heart palpitations that were happening almost daily. I also felt nauseous and sick to my stomach a lot of the time, which wasn't normal for me. I gained about 20 pounds in a relatively short period of time, and it felt like I had edema in my body, which is swelling up of fluid. My face looked very puffy, and so did the rest of my body, and that made me dysphoric as well. Not only was my voice lower, but it was uncomfortable and painful to speak and sing.
Because of the estrogen, I had severe bone loss. First it was osteopenia, and then it turned into osteoporosis, and the bone loss was severe. So severe, I was hunched over, couldn't stand up straight, walking with a walker.
The transition didn't help. It actually made things worse for me physically, mentally, and socially. The testosterone really worsened my mental health, depression, mood swings, anger issues, social issues. I lost a lot of friends because I was, in a bad mental state.
I had cognitive dissonance with my biology education when I was taking testosterone because, there was a part of me that knew it was probably like really bad for me based on what I had learned, but I didn't want to think about that. I just, if something seems too good to be true, it usually is. And that's kind of what it was with medical transition for me.
If it was a solution, if it worked, if it on some level it appeased people and it made them feel so much better, I'd be very open to it. But I've met way too many people, way too many detransitioners who said, I was constantly trying to fight against the onslaught of nature. I was always fighting against it with the hormones I was taking. As somebody said, it's like putting diesel in the petrol tank.
So it's often said that puberty blockers are reversible, but this, I think, is disingenuous on multiple levels. So the first is that the majority of children who are started on puberty blockers, over 95%, go on to take cross-sex hormones because they are the first step in sequential treatment pathway, puberty blockers cannot be considered a standalone intervention. So the way the Endocrine Society breaks this down, they state very clearly that estrogen for males carries a very high risk of blood clots and then a moderate risk of breast cancer, heart disease, stroke, gallstones, and elevated triglycerides, which are a type of cholesterol. And then right from the same document, they list the risks of testosterone for females, very high risk of thickening of the blood, and then a moderate risk of severe liver dysfunction, heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, and breast or uterine cancer.
To me, those are some really serious medical side effects.
Yeah.
That
not great.
That can be inflicted onto children.
I think that Salty is absolutely right. There should be psychedelic therapies that you have to do before you can do this and transition. And you know what I mean? And I think that could be like really therapeutic and helpful and be enlightening for a person, you know, and be one of the ways that you can kind of vet out what that decision making should or shouldn't be. And there should be a window of time that the doctors observe to have different forms of therapies like that to discover that person that they're trying to fucking change to a different fucking gender. Like,
well, there's no way to 100% actually change
Right.
your gender. Like, you can have the surgeries
Yeah.
to like change your body, but you can't change your chromosome, right? Like, you can't change the DNA, the biology, your bones, your bone structure.
Yeah.
You know, like a men's pelvis is different than a woman's pelvis. Like, that is biology. That's something that, you know, and even saying those types of things, people are called bigots for saying that kind of thing, which is true. It's
Gray Walker says, "Does everyone know about Chloe Cole?" Yeah.
Yeah, we covered Chloe Cole earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Female. Okay, so the endocrinologist gave Zainab a list, and it's much longer for female to male than male to female. A male to female is, there is a lot of rhetoric and current thought is based on because they were older studies. Yeah. Yeah, and all of this is happening in a country that doesn't have health care.
Right. And imagine just for a moment that we did have healthcare and we had, you know, the awareness of psychedelics and all of that was built in already. And you could go to a clinic and discover who you are and have a deeper, better sense of your mental health in a quiet, safe clinical environment and stuff. I think that would be fucking unbelievably helpful.
Yeah.
Across the board for any
If
walk of
as
life.
a society we were more focused on like all over actual care,
right?
Not insurance. Remember, insurance is not
care-based.
healthcare. Healthcare is the actual care that you get, and insurance is not healthcare.
Insurance is just like the opposite of healthcare. It's just preparing for something that happened or might happen. That's not healthcare. That's not care.
Yeah.
That's reaction to something bad.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna play some more of this.
fact they're being offered outside of clinical trials, despite the fact there's so much unknown about long-term risk, is a scandal in and of itself. Something that has not gotten a lot of attention, but I think will in the coming years, is the psychological impact of being told by people in positions of authority, physicians in particular, that these interventions would improve that person's mental health, and then coming to discover that not only did the intervention not improve that person's mental health, but there actually was no evidence to begin with that it ever would.
Trans people, some of them, once they became trans identified, they really felt like, I can't be comfortable in my body. I can't have a relationship, say, I can't let anyone touch me until I've transitioned. So they became very kind of fixated on medical transition as the thing that would make them feel comfortable in their body. But in fact, that didn't happen. And so it's almost like the gender dysphoria moves around. At first, it's like focused on the voice, and then they take testosterone and the voice deepens, but then it's like, well, then they have chest dysphoria and they want to get rid of their breasts, and then they have a mastectomy and it still doesn't work.
That is the road of transition. It's this always looking for the next solution, the next solution.
That's why when I first transitioned, I wanted to give myself a timeline. I broke one of them. The first one was wait 5 years once I transitioned to get breast implants. And that's the one I broke.
Double mastectomy is definitely one of the worst mistakes that I've made. Like, I have an absurd body because it doesn't look female, but it also doesn't look male. And now that I view myself as just a woman who had medical trauma, I don't view it as like a trans man's chest. I view it as like surgical scars and like weirdly shaped nipples and a form of mutilation. I know some people don't like that term. I do view it as mutilation. I do view it as sort of unnecessary medical carnage.
Sit forward a bit, just leave your feet on the thing there.
Okay, so I haven't made a vlog in a really long time, just because, I don't know, I've been busy, things have been happening, but I did want to make one, but I was told that I had to make one after I came back from Florida, because I went down to Florida, obviously, to see Dr. Garamoni to do my top surgery. Yeah. I don't know what to say, really.
Nursing was so special for me, and so many women report the same thing. I think it's tragic that there are
What were you saying?
I was saying if the guy had, dysmorphia, body issues and stuff, how the giant scars make you feel afterwards? You know what I mean? Like that's tremendous. Like to have to deal with that later. Like
Yeah,
can't even
well,
imagine. It's
and
horrifying.
scars, like I know for me, like like the scar, even the one on my hand from having carpal tunnel surgery.
Yeah.
Like scars are sensitive. You know what I mean?
Scars are
Like
funky.
it takes a while for it to, you know what I mean, for it to really. I mean, I had this. It's fine now, but you know, even like the one on my back, from having the second back surgery, um, you know, like my scar, it can, you know, it can be sensitive. Your skin is, you know what I mean. It's weird, and how it heals after, and then a lot of times people get infections with these and stuff, and I mean it's just it's more intervention, and some people never heal from having it done.
Some people never heal. I don't think I'm going to heal from Gray Walker's comment. He said, personally, I like having my nipples played with. Like, that's entirely too much information. I don't need to know that.
Well, they probably lose sensation with with those nipples though. Like,
What are those real nipples or those Sears nipples? Don't you know?
either way, I bet you they don't have no, like having surgery.
Come
and
on,
stuff.
where's Popeye? He should have been chiming in right there. Boom.
Yeah, scar tissue is very vulnerable. Absolutely. No, but a lot of times they'll like celebrate their different scars, whether they're jagged or they have a curve or a straight scar. Like they compare scars, and they talk about their surgeries, and they, you know what I mean. Like there's a whole that becomes their identity. Like literally, like their identity becomes being a medical patient.
Sarcastic Mr. Know It All. Sorry, I was like, I went into Chili Peppers land for a second there and said scar tissue a couple times in a row. I was like, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna mute us and put this back.
Transitioners out there who won't be able to nurse their children because they got their breasts removed.
A lot of young people are willing to completely alter their bodies without really understanding the value of having your body intact. Many of these young people have never even experienced a relationship.
It was the hysterectomy that was the worst thing that I had done. Even before I detransitioned, there was a part of me thinking, actually, I do want children now.
When kids say, this doesn't matter to me because what really matters to me is my gender identity, and I'll do anything to affirm my gender identity, and I don't care about having kids, and I don't care about sexual function. It seems to me that it's extremely naive of the adults in that person's life to go along with that, because we know that kids change their minds. And we for this reason, we simply don't perform medical procedures on young people that have a high incidence of regret. For example, it's very difficult to get an elective hysterectomy, let's say, as a 20-something-year-old. Let's say you have 2 kids and you're 25 and you say, I want it out, I want it gone. You're going to have a hard time finding a doctor to perform that. And that may seem kind of paternalistic, but there is a reason for it, because there's a high incidence of regret, and there's also a lot of medical consequences to getting a hysterectomy. I mean, for one thing, early dementia if you lose your uterus that early in life. The only other time that I can think of that we addressed some psychological problem with a physical intervention was with lobotomies. And, lobotomy was a surgery that was performed that severed the corpus callosum. And it was very popular at the time. It was hailed as a kind of miracle cure. And the person who invented the procedure won a Nobel Prize. But we discovered that these procedures did a lot of damage. And, they fell out of favor pretty shortly after they came on the scene. And now we think of it as pretty barbaric.
Just wanted to stop right there for a second. The lobotomies performed and the gender dysphoria referrals. Did you see
Yeah.
the chart and how it's absolutely like it goes,
It mirrors.
it mirrors it. Yeah, let me go back just.
Yes, it does.
Like almost exactly. I mean, like that this is saying something. That's huge. We need to approach this with care and compassion. But this needs to be spoken about. This needs to be something that we are standing up to protect the children, because as I say often, we are failing the children. As adults, we are failing the children, and we need to do better than this.
Yeah.
It absolutely breaks my heart. And this documentary is really good. I hope that you guys will go and finish it and watch it. I'm gonna play a little bit more before we head out for the night.
And this isn't a fringe thing. We're not talking about one or two kids here and there. We're talking about tens of thousands of children. Just on GoFundMe alone, right now, there are over 40,000 girls raising money for what they call top surgery, which is the euphemism given for radical elective double mastectomy.
Even though I didn't want it, I never wanted the full surgery. I was contemplating on going to Thailand to get the complete sexual reassignment surgery, which is what they called it then. Now it's called gender affirming surgery. So first I was going to New York to get castrated and to get more work, what we call done, more silicone put in my body. I was on Coney Island with two trannies that had already had the complete sexual reassignment surgery. And we're laughing and joking and having a good old time. And then they both looked at me and one of them said, "Don't do it." And I said, "Don't do what?" And he said, "All of my life, I thought that if I could just become a woman, I would find peace and joy and happiness." And he said, "And now that I am legally and medically a woman," he said, "I'm more miserable now than I was my entire life." He said, "I think about taking my life every day." And the other one said, "I think about taking my life several times a day, every day."
So that's where I'm not going to play any more past a part one. I really hope that you will head over though and check out the rest of it. I can put the link in the YouTube chat. So I just ask that we need to do this with compassion and care. We need to really evaluate what's happening, use our critical thinking skills, and actually discuss it because it's not being spoken about enough. We're getting it from one side, but that's it. Yeah, top surgery is being presented as a fashion choice on TikTok. Like that's insane.
Fashion choice. That's crazy.
And everybody in the community is not all thinking the same exact way or doing exactly the same thing. There's a lot of transsexuals that are speaking out that are against a lot of this. So it's not everybody in a group of people. Thank you, Salty. Oh, they're saying it's a fashion choice, like getting a haircut or a nose job. Wow. Yeah, no, it's not the same thing. That is not the same thing at all.
I disagree.
Yeah.
It is not the same.
That's just making light of it. You know what I mean? That's just making light of something that is a very, it is a topic that I try to be careful how I'm saying things because I am sensitive to, the fact that people do come by and say hurtful, nasty things to people that they don't agree with. And I just think that we need to use caution when we're talking about it because we are talking about a group of people that obviously, from the information that we provided tonight, there are the rate of people that are autistic or have mental health issues or other surrounding conditions that affect this. They have other stuff going on. So, we need to treat everybody with compassion and care. But we also need to be talking about this. Popeye said most families in the Philippines have a third gender person in their family. Wow. I wonder why. That's interesting. All right. Well, we are going to wrap this up tonight. I'm going to make sure that we put all of the links to the things that we covered tonight into the show notes. We'll do that right away as soon as we end the show. And also there'll be a couple links in there for other times that we've covered this topic, and the link when I had Emma Lindowd on, who was born intersex, which is it was a really, really interesting conversation that we had with her. And transgender is different, obviously, than intersex. That's a birth. Like she was born that way, and that is a rare. I guess I don't know if it would be considered a birth deformity. I guess, right?
I don't know. I think it's.
But
matter of perspective, I suppose.
All right. So, anything else you wanted to add, Steve?
Nope. I want to tell everybody have a good night and thank you for watching. We appreciate you. Please shop at luckyburritoart.com and, support live music. Support mutual aid.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you for coming by.
Free Assange.
Yes. All right.
Peace.
Have a great night, everybody.